I'm back working on the 2010 Chevrolet Equinox again. Passenger side axle is starting to make that crackling sound now, so I'm gonna go ahead and get that knocked out. But what happens is, I'm gonna get you a close up, is what happens, the CV boot cracks open, and then moisture gets in and starts to wash away the grease from the joint, causing it to get debris and other contaminants in there, causing the axle to make noise when you turn the steering wheel left or right. So go ahead and get this squared away. Shouldn't be a bad job. I worked on this same axle about 2 or 3 years ago. I was hoping that I wouldn't have to do it again no time soon, but here we are. So I'm gonna take you through step by step how I replaced a CV axle. The car leaning a little bit just to minimize the transmission fluid loss. I'll go deeper into why I did that as I do this video. All right, you're gonna need a 36mm deep socket. Easy breezy. Takes the socket off. Now, with the socket off, axle still doesn't move out. Go ahead and take some additional things apart to get the axle out of the hub here. I'm gonna take part of the strut assembly apart. See if I can get some clearance to get the axle out. Now what I'm gonna use is my floor jack to support the assembly, because I don't want anything to come loose violently. Just add a little pressure to it. Doesn't require a lot. These nuts or bolts they got splines in them, so gonna have a little resistance. Taking them out, putting the nuts back on so I don't damage the threads. Got those bolts out. Put the nuts together so I don't misplace them. And let's see if we can get some clearance to get the axle out. Trying to take it loose as little as possible. I'm about to take this ABS sensor out. It's gonna require a 10 millimeter socket to get the ABS sensor out, so you don't break the wire. ABS sensor, wheel sensor, speed sensor, some type of sensor. Hey, take it out, set it to the side. Hopefully we can get this axle out and put this back together. Be done with it. Got that out. Just gonna set it out of the way. Don't want the wire getting damaged, and I put the nut back in place. So should be able to swing this down. Let's see. Axle slides out. See that? Now I did tap on the axle with my hammer here just to break it free from the splines in the hub here. So slide this out. Got the axle out. Now we got 3 bolts that ties this axle to the intermediate shaft. Look like they're about 13 millimeter. Let me show you these bolts. See, bolts right here, 1, 2, and there's a third one on the other side of the axle. Need to get these 3 out, and the axle should slide out with no problems. You see the intermediate shaft back there that goes into the transmission. So let me get these 3 bolts out, and we'll go back with the reassembly. When you go to replace or purchase your new axle, you don't, for the passenger side, you don't get the intermediate shaft with it. You're just going to get the axle. So just be aware, you're not going to get the intermediate shaft with the new axle for the passenger side. What you do is you take a hammer, just give a few love taps to get the old one off the intermediate shaft. It's not welded on or anything like that, and doesn't require a lot of force, but just give a few love taps and the axle will slide off. I took this off because it's easier for me to get the old axle off, just like say with a hammer, something like that. Just a few love taps to get it off, and the reassembly will be just as easy. So just want to make sure everyone is aware of that that's viewing this video. You don't get the intermediate shaft with the new replacement axle. So don't argue with the salespeople at the parts store when they tell you that they don't sell the intermediate shaft. That all they're gonna have is just the CV axle itself. Reassembled the intermediate shaft back into the transmission. Remember, it's held in place with 3 bolts. When you take the intermediate shaft out, you are going to lose a little transmission fluid. All right. Now remember, the intermediate shaft has splines on it as well. So you just spin it as you're pushing it in, and it will line up. Don't be alarmed that it doesn't thread in straight. As you can see, like I said, this is not a bad job at all. What I'm doing now is hand threading these screws in that hold the intermediate shaft in place. I was hoping that when I took the shaft out that I wouldn't lose transmission fluid because I have it leaning or tilted at an angle, but I still lost some transmission fluid. I picked up 2 quarts, so that should be enough to put it back to its proper level once I'm finished with this job. Both really don't require that much torque because you just want them nice and they're threading into aluminum, and you don't want to strip the aluminum out. so I wouldn't recommend using the impact wrench. All right, now we go back with the axle. Got the axle back on. The intermediate shaft, now we just got to thread it through the hub. All right, look like we got it threaded in there. Just go ahead with this axle nut. Just want to make sure that it's splined in to the hub here. Don't want to damage the threads. It appears it is. So come on. Got the CV axle replaced. Got the intermediate shaft back in where it goes. Take about an hour. Let's recap here. You're gonna need a 36mm deep well socket to get this nut off, this axle nut off. You're gonna need a 13mm to take the intermediate shaft out to get those 3 bolts. Let me move this out of the way. Those 3 bolts right there on the intermediate shaft. Now, technically you don't have to remove the intermediate shaft. I took it out because it's easier to get the axle off with the intermediate shaft out, in my opinion. I mean, somebody else might be up for the challenge to try to get the axle off with the intermediate shaft in place, but I chose to take it off. Also, I took these 2 bolts out right here, 1, 2, to remove the this spindle from the strut. I use my floor jack to keep pressure on the lower control arm, just in case I don't want anything coming loose violently. You got the spring here that's under a lot of pressure, so you don't want anything coming loose violently. So in my opinion, this was an easy job. With everything, having everything, all the tools right there, your two sockets, well, three sockets, the 36 millimeter, the 21 millimeter for the nuts on the strut here, then your 13 millimeter for the intermediate shaft. An hour and a half maybe. Not a bad job.